Happy Thanksgiving. My name is Alex Chen. I'm at Trail Appliances in Vancouver at the JennAir Live Kitchen. Today, I'm going to be demoing Prime Rib 101. So for me, I love turkey, don't get me wrong, but a prime rib, it's something that my kids and my family, that we all love. There's just so many ways of getting it to where you want it to be. People nowadays, where they have also a lot of technology that you can use sous vide, reverse sear, you can cover the whole thing in salt, roasting it, high heat, low heat, all of that stuff. But this is my technique, this is how I do it. Prime rib, whether if it's bone off, which is a rib eye, or bone in. For the sake of roasting a prime rib, I'm gonna keep the bone on. So what I'm gonna do next, it's to score the beef with the tip of my knife. So what I'm gonna do, it's just keeping most of the fat on. I just wanna do just a surface scoring, just to help rendering part of the process. I don't wanna cut right into the meat, just a little pressure, but it's not. It's important to use proper knife, a sharp knife with a tip, so that it helps with the rendering process during cooking. This needs to be done a day before. Salt is the next step. I think that the amount of salt that we use on a roast kind of scare you guys a little bit, but most of it falls off. Because it's a big piece of meat, you want it to almost like cure it a day before, so it allows many hours in the fridge to sit overnight, so you can season the meat, and we will need to season it again the next day. So what I use is kosher salt. You can use sea salt, you can use different type of salt, evenly distributed, all sides. Black pepper. All sides. And then the next morning, before we are going to attempt to sear them, take the beef out of the fridge for at least an hour to try to bring it to remove some of the chill so that it's not so cold. It could be sitting at 1 to 2 hours in room temperature so that when they cook, it creates more of a harmonious pink center. At this point right now, I have the pot on medium-high. We will try to attempt to sear the beef next. So before we start searing the beef, I want to attempt to tie the roast. I'm going to show you guys how we do it. So butcher's twine, just to try to keep the roast intact. So what we're going to do, your local butcher can also do that for you as well. A little knot, a little loop. Another loop. So nice and tight, little compact package so that they can all roast nice and evenly. Next, I'm gonna sear the beef. So in a heavy bottom pot or pan that you have large enough to sear this beef, we wanna apply medium-high heat to it to heat it for a long time. So what I'm gonna do is gonna add a little bit of oil in there. It should be nice and smoky. I'm just gonna start searing the beef. Just a little vegetable oil. I just wanted to be evenly cooked, evenly sear the beef as much as possible to give it a nice golden brown. The whole process should take about 3 and 3.5 minutes. Now we want to add flavors, we want to add aromats. Now that what the beef has already been seasoned and then seared, we're just going to keep it on the side now. And then what we have in the kitchen that we use all the time is mirepoix. So it always consists of leek, onions, carrot, celery, perhaps a little garlic, and then mushrooms. We want to use those as a flavor aromats while the pan is still hot and it still have a lot of the residual searing bits of flavors in there. We want to build more flavors because what we're going to do, we're going to add butter at the end, and then we're going to transition all the vegetable as a foundation to elevate the beef. We are always going to use some of the fat that comes off to build the flavor and then keep on brushing on to the beef. So what we have is leeks of onions. Just gonna cut fairly large. Each onion into 16 leeks. Celery. Carrots. Garlic. Just lightly crush. Then mushroom. As we continue the process, I wish you can smell the aroma in this kitchen right now. We're starting to build the flavor of the beef. Now that we're gonna add the aromats, we will add the butter as it caramelizes, as it brown. This whole kitchen right now is just gonna fill up with the most wonderful holiday spirit and then the flavor of family. I'm just gonna turn this back on. I want to keep the fat, I want to keep the searing bits in the pot. That's a lot of flavor that's still left over right there. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to attempt to sear, to add more everything in there. Some fresh thyme. Perhaps small amount of salt in there as well. At this point, I'm also trying to scrape up some of the bits that was left over from the beef, just to get some of the flavor out. Butter goes right in there. It will look like we're using a lot of fat. We want to use a lot of the fat to base the roast after. So it's melted. I'm just going to turn off the heat now. I'm going to transition into a roasting pan. I'm just going to transition everything into this. All the fat. I've seared the beef on high heat to caramelize on the outside to give it a good start. The beef has been sitting at room temperature for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. I've set the oven at 225. I wanted to make sure that it's low. If you have the time, the room for errors is much minimized if you go on a lower temperature. And I'm just gonna roast the beef in there, and I'm just gonna continue to baste it by brushing it or by using a spoon to ladle the fat onto the beef as often as I can. We'll focus on making the sauce next. What we have, it's a little Madeira wine. I love the fortified Madeira wine. A little sherry vinegar, just for a little acidity at the end. I've seen a lot of local butcher shop that they attempt to make their own veal stock. And then we have mushroom, we have shallots, we have celery, we have carrots, and then the little meat trims. We will roast them to add more meaty flavor to the whole entire sauce. Turn on the pot, medium-high heat. Just gonna slice all the shallots, carrots, and then mushroom. The cut between making the sauce and then roasting the beef, the roast is gonna take hours. And if I cut all the vegetable the same size, as thin as this, it's gonna disintegrate. I will wanna attempt to strain the fat out. I wanna be able to serve the vegetable to be part of the garnish as well. The sauces wise will require thinly sliced mushrooms, shallots, medium dice of celery, and then carrots, and then we will have thyme as well. Just a small amount of trim, a little fat off the ribeye, just to build more flavors. And then I'm just gonna cut the beef into smaller pieces. Just gonna turn it up on medium now. Just a small amount of oil. Again, just gonna put some of the meat in there. Just gonna add a little bit more oil. Just gonna put a small amount of salt in there. Pepper. Just gonna deglaze with a little bit of Madeira wine. When we add the veal stock or the beef stock in there, we're just gonna bring it to a boil, turn it into a simmer. A lot of the impurities will force to float up. What we're gonna do is always going to attempt to skim off the impurity, and we always have some sort of water right here just to hold all the impurities. The more we skim, the sauce will become more clear and just remove the impurities. We have added the beef stock. We will turn on the heat on high now, bring it to a boil, turn it down to a simmer, and then we will always skim as often as possible to remove as much impurity as possible, and then slowly let it reduce until desired viscosity of the sauce. But I'll show you how the sauce is ready when we can coat the back of the spoon. So slow simmer. And I'm just going to gently push everything on one side so that I can just attempt to remove a lot of the impurity. So we slowly simmer, and everything's all gonna come together at the end. The sauce is gonna get darker, and then we're gonna add a little richness to it, light on our skimming so that we don't remove the stock. This is gonna go simmer for about 45 minutes. Often, we will do leg skim every 10 minutes or so. We're gonna check on our roast now, and then to baste it. So looking good. Just gonna tilt the pan so that we can get a lot of the fat, a lot of the flavor. You can do it with the pastry brush. You can brush it on. The first hour or so, you are not going to do really anything because you're just gonna let it roast. After an hour or two, you're gonna check it every 20 minutes, or you are going to baste it every 20 minutes. I'm just gonna add a small amount of salt. Just wanna build the layer because a lot of the salt has maybe have come off. I just wanna add a little bit more. Just gonna go back to the oven. I'm gonna come back to check on my sauce. So the sauce has gone down to about 30% of the volume now. So what I have over here is this a strainer, and I'm just going to strain it. You want to make sure that, because we took a long time to make this sauce, press it through the strainer to get the most amount of the sauce out. Just going to put the pot back under the stove. Now I'm just going to add some cream. Heavy cream. Bring it to a boil. It's gonna adjust the seasoning because we haven't really seasoned the sauce yet. So how do we balance it out? We wanna balance it out with a touch of salt, and then a small amount of sherry vinegar. Not too much, just wanna add a little touch of just to acid, just to cut to the richness of the roast. The most important is about tasting. So I'm gonna add a little bit more cream, because I think that the sauce is very, very good. I like the acid content in there now. I'm just gonna add a small amount of butter. What I mean by when we say be able to coat the back of the spoon is when you can draw a line and then it's what's coating the back of the spoon. If it's really, really thin, the water, it will just runs off. But that's the sauce white, it's covering the back of the spoon. So it's all about the texture at this point because I know that the taste, I've adjusted it, I have the butter in there, everything's all coming together. The sauce is ready to go. Let's check on the roast next. Smells delicious. It's all coming together. I'm just gonna baste a couple more times. Just a little bit of a salt, just to continue to season the roast. For a big roast like this, we season it a day before. We'll season it again a little bit more before we sear them. And throughout the whole cooking process, add a little bit more salt as we go. I'm gonna grab an instant read thermometer. I'm just gonna put it right in there. I'm looking for about 120 or so, 120, 125 Fahrenheit. It's 120. So the important part about this whole process now is about waiting. It's about letting it rest. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cover it up with the surface of the roast with a tin foil. I'm gonna let it rest for 20 to 30 minutes. The importance of this is we're not rushing the meat. We're not trying to cut into it because it's been in a hot environment. If we cut it right into it, now all the juices is gonna rush and it's not gonna be evenly distributed. You want the meat to relax a little bit. All the juices is gonna be redistributed back into the roast. The meat will taste just a little bit too tight, a little bit too tough. So the roast has been rested for about 20 to 25 minutes. Take the string off. This is the fun part. We'll be waiting for all day. The moment of truth. Holiday prime rib, happy Thanksgiving.